Let me see if I can just plug in my my speakers.
Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome Gina. Welcome to the weekly Dharma gathering, September 18th. My name is Adrienne DeFazio. I'm one of the co-founders and hosts of Weekly Dharma Gathering online. I'm really excited to introduce and welcome one of my dear friends, Vic Vega, to be leading our Dharma gathering with us tonight. The title of tonight's talk is Off the Cushion. Short description: the practice on the cushion gives us the building blocks to be able to experience more peace and joy in our everyday. The ultimate purpose of meditation is for it to help us off the cushion, and that's exactly what it naturally does. But on the really challenging days, can our practice save us from spiraling downwards? So a little bit about Vic. Vic Vega hails from Torreon, Mexico, and has been in the United States for 12 years. He has always had a tendency towards finding a religion, philosophy to devote himself to. After a long search of forms of spirituality, he stumbled upon a Tibetan studio in Boston, where he started his meditation journey. 4 years later, meditation continues to be Vic's rock. He has the awareness that the worst day of his life hasn't happened yet, and he keeps practicing to prepare for that day. For this evening, Vic will guide us through a meditation. We'll lead a Dharma talk, and then we'll close with a Q&A discussion. For those of you who are joining us live, you can always access this talk within 48 hours, post the live recording via your weekly Dharma gathering account on Vimeo. Without further ado, I'm going to hand the rest of the night off to my friend Vic. Yeah, thanks Vic for being here.
Oh man, thank you guys for just giving me the chance of being here tonight. I'm not gonna lie, super nervous because after joining David's talk last week, it's kind of hard to just be the next person after him. But nonetheless, super happy to be able to be here to just share my experience in relation to my journey with meditation, what it has done for me, for I guess for my person, and how that affects my life. Yeah, I got a couple pointers written down and everything, but I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to follow them because I'm really bad at multitasking. So I'm just going to go from my heart, I guess. So yeah, today, I am going to guide us through a meditation, just to pretty much get us, in our body, just so we can connect, to ourselves first of all, and then also, of course, with what's going on right now around us, any feelings, just honor ourselves for a moment. And so, is it okay, Adriana, if I start with that? Good. All right, cool. And so I'm just gonna ask that you just adopt the posture that's the most comfortable for you. If you are a seasoned meditator, then you probably have that down. Yeah, otherwise, just make sure that your hips are above your knees, so you can have just release tension from your lower back. I am sitting right now on my bed, which is not the most advisable, but for now, that's what I'm going to work with. So you can have your hands on your lap, just facing down, so that you can bring yourself upwards and, just have that natural curvature of your spine. And you can close your eyes. And we're going to begin just by noticing any sensations in the body right now. Anything that feels intense is probably going to be the most obvious. But then as we begin to get a little more quiet, we'll start to also feel the subtleties in the body. The energy moving up and down from the tip of our toes all the way to the crown of our head. And so we begin with connecting to the crown of our head, just to bring our focus somewhere in case we're feeling a little scattered right now. We can just focus on this one area of our body. Bringing our attention to the crown of our head and checking out maybe the temperature in that area of our body. You feel a warmth and tingling sensation, or maybe coolness. We start to locate our breath. Just meeting the breath wherever it is at in this moment. Not trying to change anything right now. We're just starting to notice where we are at right now. Bring your attention to our face and loosening the muscles around the face as well. Allowing the forehead to relax. Allowing the muscles around the eyes as well. To let go of any tension. Allowing the jaw to hang open a little bit, so this can facilitate even more relaxation. Now you can even roll your neck a little bit to let go of the tension maybe that the day brought into our body, whether it's going to work or anything may help us release even more. So the point of this practice will be right now just to release more and more. Letting the shoulders drop. Feeling your arms. letting the belly just be in its natural posture. Letting the belly be big with every breath. And feeling where we're sitting right now, whether it's on a chair, our bed, a meditation cushion, just feeling what's underneath our body, what's supporting us. Loosening the grip more and more, almost melting wherever we're sitting. Just allowing the tension of the day to dissolve. Coming down to feel our legs, checking out if there are any sensations in our legs right now that we can notice. Letting go of the need to take anything at this moment. Letting go of the urge that we get control things. Bringing in its place just kindness. Kindness and friendliness for ourselves. And coming down to feeling our feet. And any sensation going on there. Just connecting with our whole body. Just seeing how it feels to be in our own body. Bringing your full presence. Welcoming peace. Even if that peace is in the midst of chaos. beginning to notice the sounds around you. Just the life happening around you. The life that never stops. Starting to assume the role of an observer. Slowly opening each of our senses intentionally. Noticing any smells where you are right now. Feeling whatever our hands are touching right now, whether it's our lap, or anything else that you may be touching right now. And as we start to delve into our inner world, we're bringing our attention right now to our chest, our heart. Noticing if there are any emotions manifesting in our chest, the area of our heart. If there's any energy moving this part of our body. And bringing in that kindness and friendliness that I mentioned earlier to meet the energy moving around our heart. Just allowing that energy to move freely and not trying to control anything or to direct any emotions anywhere, just merely letting them go wherever they want to go. Knowing and that whatever's going on, it is just passing by. And if there's any hurt in the heart right now, you can bring in compassion for that hurt, understanding that it's the most human thing. Feel intensely, and we don't have to add any stories on top of what's already going on. No shame to add on top of whatever's happening in our heart. It's all just part of the human experience. If you can, just bring a very subtle smile to your face. A smile on our face can usually bring us back to safety, back to knowing that everything's all right, no matter what. So we take a couple deep breaths at your own pace. You begin to come out of the state of meditation, taking a deep breath here and letting it go. Deep breath in, emptying the lungs. And a final breath in and releasing completely. Slowly beginning to come back to moving our body slowly, moving our hands, our feet, and slowly opening our eyes. So hopefully by now we're a little more connected to our body. And I know that sometimes that can be hard and intense, especially when, there's pain in our bodies or but we don't feel particularly like we want to be entirely present. And so the practice can, you know, have just kind of like different tonalities um, on different days, depending what's going on in your life at that moment, especially what's going on internally. I noticed that my practice is not particularly, pleasant always. There are some days where it's exactly what I need, and it brings a lot of peace, and it helps me to feel more relaxed and more clear, more expanded. And then there are days, where I can't wait for the time to be up, because there's just too much going on here. It gets a little loud and chatty. So, but that's along the couple years that I've been practicing and becoming familiar with meditation. I've noticed that it's like anything else. It's always changing. You can never ask the practice to stay the same, because then you're just setting yourself up to an expectation that will not be met, probably, more times than not. And so what this practice itself has been teaching me is that things are always changing, things are not always perfect, but the only one thing that we do have some kind of control over is just how we respond to all that's going on, and the only way that I've like been able to come to really appreciate this practice, as opposed to making it like just one more source of anxiety in my life, is just to kind of just be okay with whatever's going on, like just accepting, just the acceptance of the moment, and just seeing that we have a tendency to add stories on top of whatever it is that's already going on, and so you try to kind of like justify, why is it that I'm feeling this way, why am I feeling antsy, or just why do I feel poorly about myself right now? Why am I blaming myself, because the practice is not going exactly in the way that I intended it, to go. And it's just, it becomes kind of like funny, to just observe the neurosis that's going on continually in the mind, and just knowing that that's what the mind does. It's not something that you are doing. It's not something that you have to put on yourself, and make yourself responsible of. The mind, it's kind of like a horse. That's how I've, Red Chugging Trumpa refers to it, like a wild horse. And with the practice, slowly, we begin to tame it. But the only way to tame it really is to just observing it, just like kind of seeing what the nature of the mind is, and separating it from ourselves, not identifying with our thoughts, not identifying with emotions and things like that. So really early on, that's the thing that really blew my mind about the practice. I was like, oh, really? So I am not my thoughts. I am not my emotions? Do I get to now have the freedom, literally free myself from thinking that this belongs to me? You know, it was just so damn liberating, to finally be able to just, yeah, let go of that notion, that, for example, I grew up being told that, that I was responsible for, yeah, for the way I felt, and if I was being dramatic, there was a lot of, growing up feeling bad for being so sensitive, and getting kind of like called out by my family for just feeling too much, and I thought that there was something inherently wrong with me. And so coming into, knowing the practice, and the reason why I've like stuck with it is because it's really the only thing that keeps reminding me whenever I get the chance, and the gift to sit down, to just recognize, that it's not all about me. This is just humanity, As humans, we get to just feel everything, But you also realize that, things don't always make sense, whatever, however you're feeling, is not necessarily attached to anything that's going on right now. It's just emotions, energy, literally just like passing through us, and we don't have to like fixate to it, and we don't have to just like hold on to it, and create a whole story about it. So honestly, yeah, I mean, that's the main thing that I appreciate from this, and especially when I'm out there in the world, it's really helpful, to know that if you're feeling anger in any given moment, like, yeah, it's normal. You don't have to beat yourself up for feeling anger. You don't have to feel like you're a bad person that suddenly is unworthy of love, because it's oh so easy to suddenly feel that because you're feeling an emotion, that you are not a good person, and you don't deserve good things to happen in your life. I know that it's something that is cultural to us, to kind of like feel unworthy. And so it's very much attached because, we feel guilty for feeling certain things. And it doesn't have to be that way, you can change your relationship to that, by just knowing that it's just part of being alive, like you're going to feel a certain way, you're going to feel sometimes judgy, but it doesn't make you a judgy person. And, it's just, you don't have to identify and make it part of your identity now. You can just observe. That's what the practice really teaches, is just to become an observer. You're like, wow, that's interesting. What's going on right now? The what's going on inside right now. The passing emotions. Wow, okay. And you just start to, kind of like have a new relationship with yourself as a whole, because now you're not just like, fixated, in an emotion and just going deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's when you start to spiral down, with the stories. It starts to escalate, and a way to de-escalate, going deeper into the emotion and letting it suck you in, is by just remaining a tad bit detached. Not to the point where you dissociate, because that's something that's also easy to do, but just, stay with it. So I feel like the key is definitely just to stay with it, not run away, because we all have, our go-tos, the ways that we like cope with something that makes us feel uncomfortable in that moment, something that we consider unpleasant. Immediately we try to reach to something, and as modern humans, the number one most common thing that we reach for when we're feeling uncomfortable is our electronic devices, and I'm personally, I'm guilty of doing that all the time, when something's feeling like icky and I just want to like escape, I immediately just go, on my phone. We distract ourselves, and in our day is the phone, and back in the day it was something else, sometimes it's food, sometimes it's beverages, sometimes it's just like, getting really chatty with whoever's in the room. We just try to escape, and I think that's what kind of like makes that discomfort stay longer. When we try to run away from it, it eventually will come back. Why? Don't ask me why. I really don't know why, but the best way to really start to reduce how uncomfortable we feel with unpleasant emotions is to just stay with them, and just give them a chance to communicate whatever message they may have for you. And it's not always with words. It's literally just energy, just like stay with it, and you'll realize that it starts diminishing, becoming a little dimmer, losing power as well. It can feel very overpowering in the beginning, and then when you just let it just kind of like, almost like run its cycle, and you realize that it's not here to stay. It just had something to tell you, but its purpose really is to leave. It's not to stay. So that's been just, like, these have been realizations that of course have not happened, in the course of just like 1 month, or like even a year. It's taken me about 4 years, I would say, to start to realize that it's okay to be human, first of all, and you are not alone. Things like feeling things that are unpleasant or suffering, as kind of like, in Buddhist terms, is called the second arrow. The first arrow is the one that's just the pain from being alive. We feel joyous things and we feel sadness as well, and that's just part of being human. And the second arrow is when we start to identify with those feelings, creating the stories of why we feel that way. That's the suffering, and it's universal. All of us go through that. Even the person that may seem the most calm and the most put together, they go through that as well. And just kind of recognizing, the fact that when you sit in a room full of people, trying to, come into their body and observe their thoughts and all that, we're all having different levels of a hard time, and it's not a reason to blame ourselves, to be unkind to ourselves, or to blame the teacher that's guiding the meditation, or the practice itself. It's just, universal. Everybody struggles, everybody. And as a person that lives in New York, I know that people that have the experience of also living here, it's one of the most challenging places that I've ever lived in. And I've lived in a couple places, and New York definitely is the one that presents the most emotional challenges for me. I know, especially, I think the subway is kind of like, it's just triggering for a lot of us that, go, first of all, like the smells and everything that's like overpowering, especially in the summer, I would say that's when you feel like, when you descend into like the station, like you're trapped in a hell, and that's when my judginess really kicks in, and I start to feel very anxious, and I start to like really not like humans, and everything that they do just bothers me, and I wish that I could like just tell everybody what to do, and so I can fix my environment, so I can feel good again. And that's the perfect example, that just lets you know that that's just insane. I mean, you can't control your environment in order to feel good. That's just, that's the neurosis, that we feel like if we just tell our partner to stop eating that way, that we're gonna finally feel peace, to stop chewing in a certain way that's making noise and that is driving us crazy, things like that. I mean, it's never gonna work. It's just gonna cause more suffering for yourself, and then now you're projecting it onto the other person, So it's, the balance is to take a little bit of responsibility, and then there's also, the concept of doing the least harm possible, putting the least harm possible out there in the world, because you realize that you also have part in that, There's a lot of things that are going on in our planet right now, that we wish were different. We wish that we could fix immediately, by just like, voting for the right candidate that's gonna just do it better, just make things better for the people who are suffering right now immensely due to the political climate and due to the environmental issues that we have with our planet and all that. But we can start small, and by starting small, we can. It echoes, It sends a ripple effect when we ourselves just become a little more quiet. When we begin to apply the concept of the gap, between an event and how we're going to react or respond, there can be a gap. Usually, because our minds are not trained to respond. They're more used to reacting. We don't leave any gaps, right? We have, as humans, the way that our brains are wired. We have what's the reptilian brain. It's the brain that knows how to survive. It comes from just having lived in a world where we had to like hide from saber tooth, and scary animals, and so we have that survival mechanism in us that's definitely helpful, but it also can hinder, our relationship with our world, when we feel too defensive, when we feel like, yeah, we're gonna get hurt, and so we react defensively, and this can cause some harm, and so there's no need really to respond in such a way all the time. We can leave a little bit of space, and that can be all the difference, between you being stuck in a really bad situation where now you have to deal with something because you said something and you hurt the other person's feelings, and now the other person's like attacking back and things like that. I personally, I have observed, because I myself, I'm a very impulsive person. To a certain level, I'm kind of an aggressive person. I grew up in a household where there was domestic violence, and what I grew up seeing, and I need to kind of like just see the time, because I don't want to go on and on, because I can rant. I can definitely rant, but I don't want to take up too much time. As a person that grew up in an environment where there was a lot of reaction all the time, those are the things that I learned. I picked up on what my family did, which was just fight all the time, just react in very, very harmful, unskillful ways, you know. I cannot blame my parents because also, you know, that's a generational thing. It's the thing that they picked up from their parents, and their parents picked them up from their parents, and so it's a generational thing. But the way to kind of like break those patterns is to become aware, you know, that that's something that you do. The way that I became aware that this was happening was because I started to notice that I just had a hard time all the time, you know, and that's what brought me to seeking for some relief, you know, and I noticed that the whole time the source of my suffering was myself. And I was surprised to a certain extent, you know, because I was like, wow, you know, like I can save myself a ton of grief. My life truly can look really different because of the choices that I make. So I do have that power of making different choices, and the different choices will create different outcomes. And so really the thing that's been, you know, doing that for me is that gap, you know. It's like before I say something, before I try and go out and, you know, and just like fix something, you know, I just think like, well, does it really need fixing that bad? Like, you know, is it really necessary that I jump into the situation and try to change things, you know, and tell people what to do and tell people what not to do? Is that really necessary, or can I just sit back and see how I feel in the next minute? Can I just like sit back for a minute? And that minute is the thing that's made like the whole difference, you know, between having a life that feels just troublesome, like I'm just getting into trouble all the time, into drama all the time, and a life that it's kind of even like boring because, you know, there's not a lot of drama going on right now, you know, and that boredom can feel like boredom in the beginning when you are too addicted to the drama, which I absolutely was. But then you realize that that boredom is also peace, you know. And so you start to fill those spaces that used to be filled with drama and just, you know, very intense feelings. You start to now, you know, okay, you start to see your potential as a person, you know, using your creativity, you know, for other stuff that's more productive than just, you know, stirring the pot. So that's what I have to share, you know, about how meditation has definitely changed my experience being alive. And you know, I know that it's a small, intimate group here tonight, but I would like to open it, you know, now to the people that are present here, if they want and if they wish, you know, to maybe just share, if you have a practice, maybe how that practice particularly has made a difference in your life. You know, how do you take the practice to the world? It's something that I'm curious to hear, and I don't know if you guys want to like unmute yourself and just chime in, because I'm actually curious, you know, to know a little about your story.
Hi. So thank you so much for this talk. First, I just want to share two things that really resonated with me. When you said you can't control your environment to feel good, that really stood out for me because I do find that I was definitely doing a lot of like trying to control people in my environment because I felt like if I could do that, then it would just make things a lot smoother for me. And then I had to step back and say, you know, people have to live their own lives and make their own choices, and what they decide for them is like the best thing for them. I can't try to get them to, you know, decide for themselves what I want them to do because I'll feel more comfortable about their decisions. So that stood out. And then you mentioned your parents, like your household, that there was a lot of, you saw a lot of reactions. So I saw that in my household too, in the relationship between my parents. And it's really made me try to be more mindful with my spouse. So when we have like situations come up, I'm really careful I'm not raising my voice, not cursing at him. And those are two things that I really, really prioritize, just pulling from what I saw growing up and wanting to do something a little different. And I do think that my meditation practice has given me the ability to pause and say, this is not the direction I want to go in, and this interaction that I'm having with somebody I love. So that's my share.
Whoa, that is beautiful. Yes. Because I mean, you mentioned something really important. I mean, people are making decisions that they consider are best for themselves. Letting other people live. I mean, that's huge. You know. Yeah, I just think that's a beautiful realization they have. You know, because I know that people are always doing the best they can. You know, and who am I, you know, to say otherwise? To say, hey, you're not actually doing your best. Your best is not satisfying me. It's not making me feel comfortable in this moment. I mean, yeah. When you realize, you know, when it really touches your heart that that person is doing the best they can in that moment, then it's really, you know, it just becomes easier to be like, all right, you know, you never know what's going on in a person's life. You know, you never know. People are not just like, you know, chess pieces in our game. You know, that we can just move them and manipulate them. People are people too. You know, they have their own emotions. They have their own situations that happen to them on a daily basis that affect them. You know, and bringing in a little bit of that compassion of, hey, you know, can I just let them live? That's a big one to have for sure. Adri, I don't know if you want to also chime in. I'd love to hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, I was also very struck by that same line that Sheena just pointed out about what you said. Like, I think, yeah, you're about the environment, like that you can't, about the environment. I feel like I'm like always adjusting my environment. I feel like that's like my confused karma a lot. Like really care about, and I think it's like my wisdom and my confusion mixed together in a lot of ways. I really love like homemaking. Vic, you know, you've been in my apartment. Like I love the things that like make a place feel like home. But that, I think my neurotic side is then being very managerial about the space, like very, very, yeah, neurotic about it being a particular way. Just because I know I am so sensitive to the spaces that I put myself in. And have been thinking about that on a larger scale in relationship to also living in New York City. I used to think that people that left were like escapist. They like just couldn't handle New York and like judge them for it. But I'm starting to realize maybe there's some wisdom in that too. Yeah, and discerning the difference between the two of them. But yeah, I'm curious. I mean, my main practice is in, you know, Buddhism and meditation. And Vic, I know that you also are like such an expert in astrology, and because I'm curious also because you included that as part of your bio as well. Like I've you know, grew up in a Catholic family, then just found meditation. That's really it for me in terms of like my spiritual practices. And I'm curious how, yeah, you know so much. Like I know nothing about the moons or the suns and whatever it is. Yeah, and I'm curious how astrology complements your meditation practice.
Oh man, that's such a cool question. Thank you. Because I am a little bit obsessed with astrology. I don't know why I feel so drawn to it. I'm just gonna hold my camera because it's kind of like sliding. But ooh, I just got an Amber Alert. Sorry about that. I think we all got it. I'm not entirely, and I've never asked myself how I integrate astrology with meditation. I just know that astrology is something that's very present in my mind at all times. Like I'm always really curious, to ask people, like what day they were born, what time, if they know, all that information, so I can immediately go and like do their birth chart. And to me, I do find that people fit those certain molds, of like their sign and like their moon sign and their rising sign and all of that. And it's just like, to me, it's just fun, to see how people are kind of like influenced by the stars in that way. But it also, gives me the sense of how vast we are, like we think that we are this just little human, that's separate from everything. And astrology, I think, along with meditation, has really helped me to see that how connected we are to everything, that we are not just like this separate being, that we are, just unrelated to everything, we are so interdependent on everything, and it's to me, it's just magical to think, that we are even super connected, to the cosmos in that way, so it's more about that oneness, that we feel like that we are like alone, and we can feel isolated, and lonely, but these little things, remind me, especially since I do have kind of like a, how do you say, like perpetual loneliness syndrome. I always feel, like, I don't have anybody, and like, I don't know, it's just a thing that was part of like my trauma growing up, I guess, I always feel like I'm isolated. And I'm like, no, like we're super connected, I've even like so much like experienced telepathy with other people, when you're thinking of someone and they send you a text, and you hadn't thought about them forever, things like that, little reminders that we are absolutely connected to each other. And I think in Buddhism, the way that this translates is just the universality of our humanity, just knowing that no matter how we feel and no matter the struggles we feel we're going through, another person is going through that as well, and that's the thing that connects us at the end of the day, I feel like even in the moments where I'm like in the subway just like hating on everyone, I mean, we all had a hard day at work, that's why we're all feeling like a little bit irritable and stressed out, because like as New Yorkers especially, we share a lot of the same experiences in our everyday life, and yet we think, that we are the only ones, so that cannot be further from the truth, like I feel like a way to connect with each other, is from that very like basic level, of like, wow, we're both human, we both, feel depressed sometimes, There's days when like our anxiety is like unbearable and things like that, and then we also, I mean, that helps at the same time to feel less, bad about ourselves, letting go of that shame of like, oh, poor me, I'm the only one that's going through this, and it means that I'm not competent enough, it means that I'm not as good as the other person, No, it's part of being alive, and some people show it more than others, but at the end of the day, we all go through the same types of inner struggles. And so, that to me has been the biggest takeaway. I mean, especially when I started to teach meditation, which I haven't done in a while. But when I started sitting in front of a group of people, and then we would meditate, and then at the end we would have like a little bit of sharing, and people would start to just like nod their heads, when somebody said like, oh, well, I had just a lot of going on in my mind, and I really couldn't focus, and I kept just like, going to the same story, and things like that, and everybody would start to like agree, and that brings people close in ways that it's like just really hard to explain with words, how that brings us together, just knowing that, we all go through the same things as humans, and I don't know how we're close to the end. So Adri, I don't know if anything that you want to add.
Yeah, I mean, we just have closing statements, but I mean closing announcements. But if you have any last things you want to add before we formally close.
No, I'm just really grateful that you had. It was honestly super fun. I, genuinely was like stressing so much about this. Like if I have anything to say, like why did they ask me? Knowing that you have like awesome people every week, I'm like, why me? But we all have stuff to share, and I'm so happy and grateful to you guys for having this space for just like, everyday people to come and talk about how, meditation changed our lives. Hopefully we can have Sheena have her own talk, at some point, because I know that she's also a practitioner, and I also want to know about her life and her experiences. It would be dope.
Maybe one day.
Soon.
Yeah, I mean, so thank you so much, Vic. I mean, speaking to that, something that I'd like to share for Sheena, for anyone who's watching this recording after the fact, a big part of this platform, a weekly Dharma gathering, is that it's meant to be a place where every type of teacher, can share what they've learned from the Buddhist teachings, from meditation at large. And so we're really trying to redefine what that looks like. And so it doesn't necessarily mean you need 20 years of experience. You can have, 3 or 4, like Vic said, and, still be able to, offer something. Yeah. So I just want some closing announcements. Next week, Justin Miles will be joining us on September 25th for a talk titled Realizing Enlightened Black Society. Justin's going to share his experience of creating and facilitating the Black Power meditation group in Baltimore, Maryland, and the importance of Sanghas holding spaces for affinity groups of all races and ways of being. It'll be 7 p.m. live online here through Weekly Dharma. Vic, thank you so much. I'm like so happy that you led tonight. And thank you, Sheena, for joining live with us as well. I think that's it.
Thanks, Vic. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Signing off. End meeting.